And we are live. I believe we are live. Hello. Let me know in the chat if there's anyone here and if you can hear me. Hopefully you can. Let's go, let's go. Okay, have we got audio? No, yes. Let me just open up YouTube. Fernando, hello, my friend. Cool. Okay, YouTube's showing me that we're live. Nice. All right, so welcome. Hey Ian, hope you're good, mate. Didn't see a track from you this time. All good. So this week I posted in Patreon, and I'd had a couple of comments about the way that I go about doing these live streams, and someone who had sent their track in late a couple of times had mentioned to me that, like, in their opinion, it would be better to not get reviewed at all than to be rushed through a review at the end, because the way that I normally do it is I spend more time on the ones at the start, and then I can't be here all day, so I end up spending less time on the tracks at the end. And the consensus seems to be from people in Patreon that they would prefer to do less, that I did less tracks and did more in-depth reviews on the and feedbacks on those tracks. This I hadn't kind of specified that in the post, so this time we're just going to do it the normal way that I do it. I'll try to kind of not spend too much time on the tracks at the start. Like, you know, sometimes I spend probably too much time on the ones at the start messing around, and then, you know, so there's a bit of it where I need to be a bit better with my time management when I'm doing it, and we'll figure it out. So I gave two options in this poll, and like 70% of the people said that they would prefer that I did less tracks and gave more quality feedback on those tracks. I think I will do another poll before next month when I do the feedback, because I thought of a third option rather than the kind of thing where I do more in depth at the start and then rush through the ones at the end and they get less detailed feedback. I thought maybe there's a third option where I do I review less tracks, more detailed feedback, but everyone can submit. And instead of having a cutoff where it's first in, first served, the numbers get the tracks that I'm going to review get kind of like randomly selected, so that everyone has the same amount of chance of getting reviewed. So I think that might that there's a possibility that could be the preference for people. It seems like kind of best of both worlds type thing from my perspective, but we'll see. So we're going to do another poll, and we'll see how everyone likes it. Anyway, enough ranting. Let's get into this first one from Sapo Ray. Oh, also, I had like a family commitment that I had completely forgot about, so I had to bring the thing forward, bring the stream forward. Sorry about that, doing that last minute, but that's my fault. And yeah, let's get into it. Can you guys hear that?
Making funk by the boxes, packing glocks. It's natural to eat your niggas like chocolates. The funk, baby. The funk. Chocolates, the funk. Chocolates, the funk. Chocolate's the funk. It's the funk. It's the funk. In the Land Cruiser Jeep with the Mac 10 by the seats. For the jackers, the jealous ass crackers in the blue suits. I make you prove that it's bulletproof. Hold your head, cause when you hit the bricks, I got gym mad bloods and bitches sucking dick. The funk, baby.
Right, so I would say this is pretty cool. I'm a big Notorious B.I.G. fan, so I'm going to be kind of picky of the way that it's used. I would say that this bit where you kind of use the verse before the drop, it just kind of sounds a bit chaotic and weird. Maybe it sounded like it wasn't warped properly or something like that. Or it could just be that it's being sped up too much, so that kind of marks it down for me. But in terms of the vibe, I think it's really cool. I really like the bass you've got going on. It's got like a really nice sound to it. In some sections, like when kind of everything comes in, you've got this like repetitive vocal thing in the background that's got nothing to do with the Notorious B.I.G. vocal, which I'm not a big fan of doing that, like having multiple vocals, especially if you're using like something that's quite well known. But in this section, it kind of feels pretty crowded because you've got this quite prominent bass line, you've got the vocals going on, and then you bring in this kind of chord stab riff. So it just kind of sounds like there's a bunch of things almost playing independently to one another there. I think if you can take the elements, so basically what I would recommend doing is like just muting out everything except for like your kick, your bass, then those like melodic elements, and just try and get them all kind of working off one another. It might be a matter of like simplifying the like melodic elements that play on top so that they're just interacting a bit more with the bass line and the vocals. And then so you want to, with that kind of thing, you want to really kind of get this thing where it's like more than the sum of its parts. So I think there's a bit of work to be done there, especially, and with the vocals I think you could pull it back a little bit. It's quite repetitive. Maybe sometimes with that kind of thing, less is more, you know. So yeah, I think it's a cool idea. There's the track's sounding good, it's got good elements, and now I think it's a matter of kind of refining it a bit, in my opinion. So off to a good start there from Sapo Ray. Unknown Vibes, let's go. more of a... Cool, so this is off to a really good start. I like the kind of nice separation between the elements, a bit more of a melodic vibe from Unknown Vibes. I feel like just there, if you did something a little more intense to kind of drop it, to create like a bigger transition there. So build it up a bit more and then drop it to a bit more kind of silence.
I can feel that. 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 I can feel
Right, really solid stuff, and cool to see you doing something a little bit different from your other stuff, which is, yeah, really good on you. Unknown Vibes has been, just had like his debut release on Serrano's Kitchen, which is sick, and has just signed another EP recently, which is also sick. I thought that, so with this vocal that you bring in first, I think it feels a little bit thin, maybe a little bit quiet, so just 1 or 2 dB up. Maybe if you're low cutting it, maybe just ease that back, make it a bit more gentle. But pretty solid in the break, like enough to kind of keep you going. Good build up, creates a bit more hype before the drop. The only bit that I felt was a little bit lackluster was this section here, just between the drop and this kind of build. It just kind of lost a bit of the intensity there. So I think maybe those clap fills were just a bit kind of tucked back. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of, you want to just kind of smash it there. So just something that it felt like it kind of stumbled a little bit there when it should like really smash. So, but it, like in general, really solid stuff. Okay. 3 Eyes? I don't know. Sing It Babe. This looks like it's a sketch or maybe a I don't know. I'm gonna assume that this is like well, let's listen to it first. But if you're sending a track that's like 3 minutes 30, I'm going to assume that it's for Spotify or something like that, probably, and I will base it on that. Like, if you're making an edit version of a track for Spotify, then you need to start with like the hook of your track. You need to hook the listener, because if someone's listening to that in a playlist and you just start with some beats or something, bam, skip to the next track, you know. So that's what you need to do for those Spotify edits, right? You need to capture the person's interest right from the start. You can then strip it back a little bit. You don't have to kind of keep it going, but one of the keys is just to like get people's attention, get them to listen. Anyway. Really weird panning on this. Like, it feels like all the melody is on the left side and a lot of the drums are on the right side, which is kind of like something in like the Beatles era. Is like they were doing all sorts of weird shit like that, because they were experimenting. Stereo was like a new thing, right? And they were experimenting with it for kind of club music, electronic dance music. You want that, you know, you want it to be pretty solid down the middle, and then use the panning to kind of like place certain things, but you want your drums to be like full, taking up the full spectrum, the full panorama, and your melodies to be taking up the full panorama, but you can place different elements within that panorama of your melodies. Hope that makes sense. But it's quite disconcerting to listen to. I'm going to actually just mono it. Oops. Mono it. Yeah, right. So I mean, in general, it's pretty chaotic. There's quite a lot of stuff going on there. I think you need to really go through a process of refining it and deciding what's the main element and get everything following that. I feel like there is some kind of cool vibe in there. I like the kind of essence of the melodic part of it. I like the sound of the tone of the vocal. It feels like you've got a lot of melodic stuff going on, or maybe it's just like you can kind of see it on the spectrum analyzer here, just how much is going on and how lacking the hats and stuff are. So like I would expect the hats to be kind of more something like this. Yeah, I don't know. I think it sounds like it's a good start to something, but there's a lot of work to do to get it a bit more cohesive. I'm not sure where you're at in your kind of production process. You might be just starting out with things. It doesn't really matter where you're at, because everyone can benefit from using reference tracks. And I think grab a couple of tracks that you really like, that you feel are in a vibe to what you want to create, and just try and compare what you're doing to theirs. Don't try and compare like, oh, their track is much better than mine or worse than mine, because it's everyone's different, right? Everyone, that person whose tracks you're referencing them for a reason. So you can't expect that your tracks are going to be as good as theirs, but you can learn a lot by looking at theirs and seeing what they're doing. So try and figure out how to arrange this into a bit more of a club track, because it doesn't sound like it's intended for Spotify at this moment. And then try and just pull out some of those elements, drill it down to the main points. What's the main theme of the track, and then try and get all the elements working together. Oh, and sort out that panning. That stuff was a bit crazy. Hotson's 82 has entered the chat. No, he hasn't really, but it kind of reminds me of early Hotson's 82 tunes. Cool bass line and stuff, but I feel like it's really needing something to, like a hook, some kind of melodic or vocal thing to take my attention. Right. Jayos, we know each other a bit. I've listened to quite a few of his tracks. I'm going to say, bro, that this one is not as good as some of the other stuff that I've heard from you. And there's some really cool elements to it. Sick bass line from at the start, like it comes in with a really good intro, but there wasn't like a hook or an element that really grabbed me. You brought in this vocal, but it's more like a kind of adding to the texture and the vibe of the track. It wasn't like an earworm that's like holding my attention. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's like, I mean, don't take this the wrong way. It's like, I make tracks often that just aren't good. And I'm not saying your track is like terrible or something like that. What I'm saying is like, the way I go about writing tracks myself is I have an idea. I try and turn that idea as quickly as possible into a track. And then once that's done, I go, is this good or not? Am I going to spend more time in it? Is it something I would release? And most of the stuff that I write doesn't get released because it doesn't kind of meet that threshold. I still made it and I still kind of worked on it. And I think it's important to to understand that you should have an expectation that not every track that you write is going to be awesome, because not every idea that you have is going to be awesome, because that's not how it works for anybody. Everyone has ideas that aren't great. So I think you could probably do some stuff like the drums could be mixed a bit louder, could be a bit it could be a bit punchier, tighter drums. You could look at trying to create a melodic theme or something that's a bit more engaging or a bit more memorable. You could try and find another vocal, but my honest advice to you is just go on and do something else. Something you could do, because like I said, the bass line is really sick. You could literally take a new track, or start a new track, sorry, and take that bass line and reuse it in a different idea, right? So basically kind of remix your own track in a way, which is also something that I do. Make a new version of a track because I feel like it's got something, but it's not working right now. Mirage. Really nice keys in this, the ones that come in from the start, really cool. Some really nice, unique kind of sounds coming in here. It's cool. I love hearing stuff in tracks that it has to work, obviously, but going like, I wouldn't even know where to start to make that sound. A really nice work on the breakdown here. It's a, I would say, underutilized thing to like kind of keep it mellow and then bring the sub in. It's something that kind of sound like, you know, often people will bring out the drums and then slowly bring the drums in. I do that a lot, or use a snare roll or something like that to kind of build up tension and energy here. But in a club, like just dropping that sub bass back in full is like gonna really work. That's gonna like bring back a bunch of the energy, and then when you take it out here, that's going to create tension before the drop as well. Another solid offering from Mirage. Thank you, brother. Dose. Now, I can't remember if it was you, Dose, who said this was Trance 2.0 or something in your email. Someone did. I think it was you. So let's find out what that means, because I don't know. I mean, this is, let me just preface this by saying this is 100% not my taste, but technically it's really pretty good. It's the sound design fills up the track really well. The elements are working and interacting together well. You're using some nice dynamics, some nice kind of shifts in tension. It kind of reminds me of like maybe not early Dead Mouse, but kind of like the kind of middle of the 2000, like 2010 12 Dead Mouse kind of sound. Yeah, there was the mix sounds pretty good. There was a bit here, yeah, where you kind of like just before the drop, I kind of felt like it was stumbled a little bit. It didn't quite deliver. Yeah, but you've done it really well. It could. It reminds me, there was this. I don't know. I guess it was for like a Dead Mouse masterclass or something. But it reminds me of like the sound from this video ad on YouTube where Deadmau5 would say something like, this is one of the cardinal sins of EDM or something. I don't know. Maybe someone in the chat remembers that ad that played a couple of years ago. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It also kind of feels like maybe it needs a vocal or something. It feels a bit kind of, yeah, commercial EDM kind of thing that would suit having like a big kind of poppy vocal.
It's inside you. It's inside you.
I would probably not have this like riff in the intro if I were you. I think this sounds really cool and like a nice intro. So I would start with these pads and just build up the drums and bass and stuff. Also, like 30 seconds is quite early, in my opinion, to be dropping in the bass, but
Imagine the world without pain. Imagine the world without sadness. Imagine the world without fear, without all the things you want to disappear. Imagine that every single day is not and that all the hatred that's inside of us will never be revealed. Never be revealed.
All this energy.
it sounds like your drums are a little bit quiet in here. I'm also quite unsure about what you're going for. At the start, I thought you were going for some kind of like deep house kind of thing, like Piv or something like that. Now it kind of feels like trance-ish or something like that. I'm not sure if...
Dance with me. Tonight.
Every single day.
You create the light.
Yeah, that really lacks impact there. Oola in the chat says it kind of sounds like a track made by AI. To be honest, I haven't listened to much music made by AI. I'm not that interested in it, but I kind of get what you understand. So like that should have dropped to something more interesting, you know?
Create the light.
I mean, I think for house music or house techno, electronic music,
Every single day.
you want your kind of high end to be a bit more like that than like this.
It's inside you.
It sounds solid. I would like, I'm not, yeah, like I said, I'm really confused about what it is you're going for, because the drums and stuff sound very, the drums sound very like you're going for like a very stripped back minimal kind of thing. but then everything else in the track sounds like you're going for much more of a trancey kind of thing. So those two elements feel like they're kind of fighting with each other. So I think I would probably, go back to the drawing board a little bit. If you're going for that kind of trancey vibe, then you need to like pump up the drums a bit, I think. Pretty solid stuff. I think you're going for some kind of like tech house type thing. Like it sounds like it's inspired by Iglesias and R² type of thing. Mystery Box commented in the chat that look at that waveform. I agree. I've turned it down by 2 dB to kind of balance the volume. It's very limited. I think it was like -6 LUFS or something like that. Which may be making it feel like you're going for more tech house than you are. I'm not sure, not too sure, but it's very, very limited. Interesting, cool, fun vibe at the start there. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, Mystery Box also commented that there's not a lot of dynamic range. I totally agree. Like, you can really feel how this is a problem, like at the transition point here, because you've got this vocal coming. You've got quite a bit going on still in the break, and there's not really an energy change between the break and the drop. It just feels very linear. So. And that's because everything's so loud. So if you're going to have your tracks this compressed, I would recommend stripping out. Like, so you have to kind of really overdo the dynamics in your track. So you want to strip out a bunch of the drums and the bass and stuff in the break to create some kind of dynamics for the transition points. I would probably recommend a combination of doing a little bit of that and easing back a bit on the limiting. But all in all, it's pretty solid for sure. I would say you could pretty easily get that signed for sure. The drums sound, like I said, it really reminds me of like an Iglesias or R² or Latman kind of drum groove. Yeah, solid. I would like, I would recommend just kind of reworking the dynamics a little bit and then send that shit out as some demos, as a demo.
You know now.
This also, strangely enough, it doesn't seem like it's that loud on the meter. This also feels really compressed. Yeah, again, this feels like it's quite over compressed. Everything feels like it's the problem with tracks when they've got too much compression. They feel like they become quite tiring to listen to, I feel like. Oh, fuck. Excuse me. So there's a perfect reason why you need to look at the dynamics of your track. Like this and this do not match, you know, like this is like, this build up feels like kind of main stage at Tomorrowland, and this not so much, you know. Yeah, also the amount of compression on there is like pushing some of the elements up. So that's kind of one of the reasons that's making this like riser here seem so loud and so over the top, is because of the amount of limiting. But also that's what's happening with these strings here. They're getting pushed really high. It almost feels like you mixed it and got it sounding good without any compression on the master, and then it got really, really limited hard in the mastering process, which kind of threw out the mix. I really recommend mixing into a limiter, to be honest. You hear the advice to not do that a lot. I think it's bullshit. I think for this type of music, you want to be kind of mixing it to a certain amount of compression. And you need to kind of take that into account of how it's going to sound when that compression is applied. So it's kind of, it's a bit, there's also, the track feels a little bit confused. Like the kind of drop feels like it's trying to be like a groovy deep house type track, and the breaks feel like they're trying to be quite intense tech house kind of things. So I think there's a cool vibe in there. I mean, I don't know. It feels like that's the track, and these breakdown sections are not really working for the track. That would be my main concern there. I think all of that, some of that stuff is getting overblown by how much compression is being applied. Dunk pop music. I think this was another one that was like -6 LUFS. So sorry if I sound like a broken record if I'm going on about the loudness, but I think it's just that there were a few in a row that were really loud. So I mean, okay. So I think there's something. Could be really cool. I feel like the amount of, let's say, the mastering that's been applied, and the way it's been applied is completely wrong for the style. Like it's just, especially when it's got a lot of kind of musicality in it. Let's say, like it's there's, it's hard to know what to listen to. Like the vocals really in the front, the bass is really in the front, all the synths are really in the front, the drums are really, everything's in the front. So it kind of turns the track into being quite two-dimensional. Like this arpeggio feels like it should be kind of a background element, but it's like right in my face. I don't know. It could be that that's what you're going for. One other thing that I'm kind of feeling, the drums, I feel like there could be a bit more syncopation in them. I'm like a kind of, not too much more, but something like, I'm kind of like imagining like a Moose T kind of drum beat that's kind of like quite disco-y, groovy, with a few more congas or something. I don't know, a cowbell, some bits, just some syncopation in there. I think that would kind of help to give it a bit more groove and make it feel like, because the beat kind of feels a bit rigid. Okay, Dicky Clear, Great White Dicky Clear remix. So he's back, folks, after a few weeks off. A few months off, of sending tracks in. Our friend Dicky is back. And what's he got for us? Is this like an edit, Billionaire? I don't know the original. it's cool. It's feeling a little bit like it's a little bit subdued. Like it kind of feels a little bit muffled. Let me have a look at the frequency spectrum. Yeah, like the bass, the low end is solid, but the high end is kind of lacking some definition. So when I pump that EQ up, which is quite a lot, so that would you don't want to be EQing your tracks like that. You want to be doing that using the volume of the different elements. But when I do that, it kind of, to me, it sounds a bit more balanced and like it's got a bit more drive and energy. Feel like it needs, it doesn't need something crazy. It doesn't have to be like, when I say like it needs a hook or something, it doesn't have to be like, that you have to bring in some big crazy melody, but maybe some interesting sound design thing like on the drops or something happening here that really just stands out in the track and sounds like unique and interesting. Yeah, because I think it's really well done, and it's very rare that I listen to someone's track. They'll say, often what they'll ask me is, what should I add? And that's not normally my response. Will be like, you don't need to add anything. You probably need to take things away or arrange it differently. In this case, I think there is some kind of like unique element missing, something on the drop or some kind of like something that gives some excitement. Hit me with a DM, Dicky. I've got some ideas for references for you. Cool, good stuff.
can't deny house music, like, you know what I mean? Doesn't matter what style of music you like, that loop. You like music, you like house. You just haven't realized it yet.
This is a vibe. Yeah, really, really good.
House music, like, you know what I mean? Doesn't matter, like, that loop. You just haven't realized it yet.
This is super solid, and I think this track really illustrates the point, the importance of really a solid idea. This everything just works super well together. It's captivating. It's like it has this kind of like nostalgia, but also a uniqueness to it. I love it. Does it sound like it's super professional? It doesn't matter. I could tell you some things to like try and improve this, try and improve that. But honestly, I think the vibe is there, and trying to polish it might take away that vibe. And you know, like there's so many amazing tracks from like the 90s, early 2000s that are just so damn good, but objectively kind of produced, mixed pretty badly. Not saying that this is produced and mixed badly. I'm just kind of giving an example of like that. But there's still, like, you know, say tracks, stuff on like early Tracks records and stuff, early like Chicago stuff. People will play it in the club now, and it's objectively worse in terms of like the production quality, but it's like the track of the night because it's just so damn good. This sounds like it's got more like modern production, but it's telling a story, and that story is captivating. So yeah, sick, well done. I think you should just send it out as a demo. I don't know exactly where, but I think you should send it as a demo. Ollie, another regular. Let's see what you've got for us. Right, this is okay. So good intro, good like level up to this drop, but this just felt like you were kind of going through the motions of having a break there for the sake of it. Like it didn't add, it's not adding value to the track, I don't think. Like honestly, if I just delete that and put this here, it's going to be a little bit out of time, but you know, maybe even less. Solid. I think the timing of that vocal could have probably been like one bar back or something, it's really nice. It's kind of interesting and fits in the track well. But it felt like the break was waiting for something to happen for a little too long, and then it felt a little bit too rushed between where the vocal comes and the drop happens.
Another one bites the dust.
So I would have the another one bites the dust, and then like a little pause, the claps, and then drop.
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah, again, this break felt a little bit jumbled. Like this first bit sounded solid.
Another one. Yeah, another one bites the dust.
I kind of felt like it should have dropped there. Then you kind of do this. You kind of build it down quite a lot, then do this quite intense build up with the snare roll, and then this bit feels like too extended. I don't know, I think it could be condensed. Just the track's not like super crazy intense, so I think you want those breakdown and build ups to be a bit more smooth. Super solid track, dude. I think it's got like a cool, really cool vibe. The vocal is super nice. I think you just need to kind of work on the breakdowns a bit, get them a bit smoother, and just try to, like it's almost like the energy feels a little bit out of whack on it. Like there's points where the energy comes too low, and I'm like waiting for something to happen, and then points where like the energy was trying to get too high out of nowhere. Like, yeah. Nice bass guitar thing. feeling a little bit like confused by this one. Like, it feels like on one hand it's trying to go in like a organic Afro house, like an organic house kind of really chilled kind of direction, and then on one side it's kind of trying to go in like a melodic techno or Afro house kind of like, but like peak time Afro house kind of where it kind of meets with like melodic house and techno kind of vibe. So it's a bit confusing. Let's say the synths are in that more melodic techno direction, but then the drums and the ambience of the track is in that more chilled direction. Yeah, like these bits feel really weird. Like, it feels like you're trying to do something like art bat or something on one hand, and then the piano says like, I don't know, like what's Lee Burridge's label called? All Day I Dream, kind of like floaty organic house kind of vibe. So I don't know. It feels a little bit confused. I think my main suggestion for this is just to kind of pick a lane and go with one or the other. Maybe you've got 2 tracks here and you go, all right, I'm going to take this and make it into 2 different tracks that are doing 2 different things. It's well produced. Everything kind of works. There's space for it. But I think it feels really like there's 2 conflicting ideas in it, to me. So Adria said that this is the second track for some demos that he's been sending out. The label liked the first one and wants some advice on this one. So far it sounds really solid. I don't know that I'm going to be able to tell you anything to necessarily improve about this, because it sounds really good. The one caveat I will say is that, like, generally for me, I find organic house just a bit boring, that kind of like floatiness. So like if it's kind of, so if I am giving you any feedback about like this bit's boring or this is not working for me, then take it with a grain of salt, because I'm not the hugest fan of the style. I like the aesthetic of it, but it doesn't like excite me as dance music. But this sounds really good.
a Cadillac riding. This is the summer of love. I was made for love, I'm not a fighter. Let's have some
Mystery box. I think the loud bongo is kind of, it fits to the style. Yeah, dude, this is really solid. I don't really have any kind of suggestions as to like what I think it is what it is, and it's a really good version of the idea. You've brought it to life well. Fingers crossed for you to get it signed. So when I hear a track like this that has this many different things coming in the intro, I instantly feel a bit worried about where it's going to go, because either it usually ends up in there being too much stuff or it getting a bit stale. So fingers crossed that this doesn't do either of those. But there's quite a few parts introduced in quite quick succession in this intro. So let's see. The beat and everything here sounds solid though. Did kind of call it. You've done so much in this, like you've dropped the bass line in by 15 seconds into the track, yet in this kind of, what is this, 2 minutes of the track, not much has changed. You have a couple of little breaks and stuff, but in the breaks it's just like taking out some elements and putting a snare roll in, playing the vocal. It's not really like kind of dynamic, and it's not building up either, because you've already built it up before. Like, this is a club arrangement for DJs to play, and this is probably the initial transition point from the last track. So all the stuff that you've done there before that, like, it's going to be played together with another track and someone's bringing it in, so I feel like you can save a lot of this stuff to build in this part of the track.
I think I need a break. You make me feel so dark.
Yeah, so what I would suggest you to do, I mean, it feels like there's a track in here that will work, but these breaks and stuff just feel quite uninspired, like they're just going through the motions. It's literally just take out the kick, put in a snare roll, play the vocal, add some crash fills or something, maybe a riser, and it's not doing anything exciting. And then it goes back to this kind of like repetitive loopy groove, which is fine, but it needs a bit more change, you know, like have some sections where you take stuff out, you know, take out all the hats in a section, take out all the, just have a section where you just play the kick and the bass and the vocal or something. Just try and do things a little bit more exciting. And, you know, like I said at the start, you kind of make all these changes really quickly, introduce new elements, and then by here you've introduced all the elements that you're going to introduce, so it kind of gets a bit stale. It's not like a million miles away. I think you just need to kind of go a little bit back to the drawing board. I would recommend getting 2 or 3 reference tracks and trying to understand that reference tracks that you know like really work and are kind of like engaging. I'm not sure if you DJ, but if you DJ tracks that like are in a similar style but really work on the dance floor and that people respond to in the club, right? And then see what they're doing and try and mimic it in your track. I don't mean like, I'm talking about, when I say mimic it, I'm talking about like get some ideas for the breakdowns and the build-ups that are not just like take out the kick and put in a snare roll, right? Do some different stuff, and then just see how they're kind of shifting the energy through the tracks, and see if you can rejig it, because I think you've definitely got a solid idea there. I think it just needs an extra kind of, I don't know, it just needs an extra push. Okay, Fernando. Okay, so yeah, ironically, on the stream where I'd been talking in Patreon about whether or not we should be doing less or more tracks and doing longer or shorter reviews, it's the most tracks I think I've ever received. I think there was only one track that didn't have the, sorry, I think there was only one track that didn't have a download enabled, which is normally there's at least kind of 5 or 6. So this is like the most tracks I've ever had in a review session, I believe. So we're going to have to try and speed things up here, so I'll stop chatting.
Tell this little ditty.
Really nice, like the elements seem to work really well together. I think this kind of snare that you've got, this snare rim shot, something like that, it's maybe a bit loud. It feels a little bit harsh. And maybe your kick is a bit boxy or something. Let me just try something with the EQ. Something feels a little bit weird, but maybe it's because there's no bass in yet. maybe a bit loud on that reverse string. It kind of comes out of nowhere and then is like the main focus of the track. The vibe of the track feels kind of pretty chilled, so I would try and, in the mixing, I'd try and keep everything pretty chilled, and I think that's like a pretty good, part of mixing is not just making everything loud. It's about creating dynamics and about creating like setting the vibe and energy as well.
When the jumps back up there, and the shit was on, excuse me for cursing again. The shit was on, excuse me for cursing again. It was happening, baby. I wouldn't miss it for the world now. I like to tell this little ditty. It was happening.
So I think the vocal that you've got is cool. Like all the parts that you've got are cool. This break just felt a little bit kind of like the opposite to some of the other feedback that I've given. Like it felt a bit rushed. Like it takes a while to kind of build down. Then the vocal plays quite quickly, and then you kind of build up while the vocal's playing, and then drop it back. Like I think it needs a little bit of space to breathe. And I think it's about finding a balance between, not extending it too far and getting it feeling boring or like it's going on without any action. But you want to have I think the vocal takes up enough space in the frequency spectrum and is kind of engaging enough where you could probably have it just...
When the jumps back up there, and the shit was on, excuse me for cursing again. The shit was on, excuse me for cursing.
Yeah, like this, the vocal plays and this pad feels like it's starting to try and increase in tension. So the vocal, there isn't like a moment where it settles, and that's what it feels like it's going to do right there. So I think you could probably just extend the break by another 8 bars or something like that. And just try and create a settled moment and then build up. And it doesn't need to be like this long, intense build up like it would be in maybe a tech house track. More like keep that tension going with the vocal and then have some kind of like smooth uptake in energy to the drop.
It was happening.
Mix is sounding good too. I mean, it might be personal taste, but that kick sounds crazy to me. It doesn't sound like... I'll see what the rest of the track is. Let me just jump forward and see if I can retract that statement. No, that kick sounds crazy to me. I think, yeah, just try switching out the kick, or better yet, find a track that you like that has a great round, fat, warm kick that works with the style that you're going for, and sample that. There's a video on my channel, or 2 videos on my channel, where I explain how to do that. I like that organ sound, it's nice. So this by this point, it just feels like it's got way too many things kind of playing on top of each other. It's starting to get chaotic. So when you're adding like layered, like layers, you want the new layer to be either complementing or playing off the interacting with the previous like layer or the previous sound before it, right? So when you kind of just add more and more things, it starts to kind of get too, I don't know, it gets too crowded. The point of the track gets lost. The sound is like screaming out for some delay and reverb, I think. So I think, I mean, I feel like there's something here. It's definitely got a vibe to it. It feels like, yeah, it kind of feels like a little bit, you kind of, it's like missing focus of like what is, it feels like then this riff that comes in is supposed to be like the main point of the track, but when that's being introduced, it doesn't make me go like, oh, awesome, this new thing is here, and it doesn't elevate the track like it feels like it's intended to. And then there's some other elements, like this ride that came in is really cool and is adding energy, but you're kind of doing it in the last outro-ish part of the track. So like the track is like building up towards the end when realistically someone's probably going to press play on the next track that they're going to mix in here, start mixing it in here and start that transition, you know. So yeah, I think decide what's the main point and just double down on that, and then again reference some tracks and try to take the listener through the like energy of the track in a way, like lead them, right? Doesn't mean you don't want to surprise them at moments or create tension and release, but really look at that kind of flow of energy through the track. This kick feels like it needs a little bit more top end on it, like to kind of punch through. The clap snare sound that you just brought in, I feel like it kind of just threw out the drums. The drums were sounding like really nice and cohesive and everything was working well together, and then that came in and it just sounds quite out of place. I think the best way to find the right like clap or for the track is to have your clap playing in MIDI and then use the hot swap function on an Ableton Simpler and just audition through a bunch of claps playing in context with the track until one just like sits in the groove. Like one of the biggest things for getting a track to sound, I don't know, sound good, sound pro, sound, I don't know, yeah, just sound good, is sample selection, sound selection, you know, just getting sounds that work together well. And I find it really, really difficult to do that by listening to things in my browser. So I always try to listen to things in context with the rest of the track playing. Right, so Seamus, I've given you some feedback on some other tracks, and I'm going to kind of say the same thing about this one, that like it feels like there's kind of a lot going on. You introduce a lot of new elements, but without something being like the star of the show. I think that's the absolute, like one of the most important things about writing music is just like writing music that's engaging to people, is like having a point, a theme, like a main character, whether that's a vocal, a synth, a melody, the thing that someone's gonna have stuck in their head the next day after they hear it in the club, and that can be like a percussion riff, or it can be anything, but it needs to be something, right? And generally, when you've got too many things in, even if you've got that thing in there, it gets like washed out by the other elements, right? So when I'm writing music, one of the key like steps is going through a process of getting stuff out of the track that is not adding value. Okay. Carino version 5. It's pretty loud atmosphere kind of noise loop in there. Almost feels like two different tracks from this transition point. that this new vocal that you've brought in just feels like it's kind of, I don't know, it's wrong for the track. It's not working with the groove. It felt like it's kind of the track feels like it's supposed to be like quite upbeat and kind of fun, housey, and then this vocal feels quite deep and chilled. Yeah, there was another vocal earlier, I think, so it's kind of, yeah, it threw me off a little bit. So you bring in this melody thing here that's what's, maybe you brought it in earlier, but it's more prominent here. Like, you've got like this really cool bass line that's playing in the track, and it's really warm and full and quite engaging, and then this thing kind of comes in and the two are just acting out of sync with one another, and then you've got these kind of like one-shot melody sounds happening, or like one-off kind of melody sounds happening. It just doesn't feel like it's kind of adding up to more than the sum of its parts. I mean, like, finding melodies can be really difficult, and I always find that doing something like that at the start of a track is it tends to be infinitely more difficult when if you have like a track like this, you go, oh, the melody's not working, let me try and find a melody that does work. But when you're to go about that, what I would recommend is maybe like bounce the track out without the melody, and then put it in record box or something and play it together with, so you can put record box into like 2-track DJ mode, and you put the crossfader halfway in between and play it together with other tracks that are in the same key, and just kind of listen to synths that work from other tracks and see if you can get some inspiration like that, because I think you've got a really solid foundation of the track here, but I don't think it's like the like melodic parts are doing it justice, and maybe that vocal that I said wasn't really working for me. If you stripped out some of the synths, maybe that would work better. Yeah. Kind of just feel everything feels a little bit washy. There's nothing really kind of standing out and kind of going, look at me. All right. The piano sound that you're using here sounds a bit odd. It sounds like a kind of grand piano sample, but it sounds, from the style of the track, it sounds like you probably want to be using like an M1 style piano or something like that. Maybe like you could add some saturation and compression and kind of trying to make it a bit more like intense and stabby, but probably just finding a different sound that is a bit more housey. Maybe that even is an M1, but it's just like got a lot of reverb and stuff on it. Yeah, there's some sounds in here that are just not working. This kind of like dubstep wobble kind of growl just sounds a bit weird, a bit kind of out of place. The way that the piano's kind of panning around, I think the amount of reverb and stuff that it's got on it, the length of the notes, just make it, it's not, I think you want that element to just be like really punchy and really unapologetic. So I would reference some tracks that are doing that and then try and figure out what they're doing. I'm sure the piano won't be like panning around. It'll just, you want that to be like bam in your face. Oh yeah, also the vocal thing that you really these vocal chops, they're not working with the rhythm of any of the other elements, they're just kind of happening. Now you've got two vocal chops that aren't working with each other or with the other elements of the track.
Nowadays, it's the face of the underground.
Then you've got this new like noisy kind of synth that's is playing on top of the piano, but it's like it's in the same part of the frequency spectrum as the piano. So when you're layering things, it's really important to try and make sure that those layers are working together and still leaving room, that they're complementing each other, so that the combination of the two layers is making something that's like bigger than the combination of the two layers, you know, that they just, when you take one off, it just sounds less, you know. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Sorry, I've been at this for a couple of hours. I'm starting to lose my mind. So I think, I mean, honestly, I think you could have a sick track in here if you just double down on the piano and focus on that, make that solid. If you're going to layer something on top, use something that sits above it in the frequency spectrum. And yeah, but really focus on getting that piano solid.
Visible pleasure.
See, like this is Kaiser from your track. If you listen to this one, the bass and the synth are doing the same thing, but they're complementing each other. Like they sit in different parts of the frequency spectrum, and they both like add up to more than they would alone, right? This is really good. Solid atmosphere being brought in the break.
This place is about physical pleasure.
Nice. So the vocal is not to my taste at all, and you're always going to get that with vocals. Like, you know, that's one of the downsides. One of the kind of, it's a gamble using a vocal, because some people might really like your track but not like the vocal, and then it turns them off the track. Sorry, but vocals are one of the best ways to make a track more engaging. So, but anyway. The way you're using it works, and I just wanted to point out to anyone watching, this here is such a powerful move, just taking stuff out of a track. Like there's been a couple of others, but this is like one of the first tracks that does something like this, and it's such a powerful thing. And you're not adding something to create intensity, you're removing things, and the benefit of that is it puts the focus on other elements that are already there. It creates like some kind of shift in dynamics, and it allows you to add those elements back, which gives the same effect of adding something new to the track, but it's kind of more rewarding for the listener because they're familiar with the element that's being added back. It's something that's not done enough.
Physical pleasure. Physical pleasure. Physical pleasure. This place is about physical pleasure.
Yeah, really great stuff. You've done a super good job on that. This sounds weird. There's things being sidechained to a kick that isn't there. It just kind of makes tracks sound a little bit either outdated or a little bit amateur. I don't like using the word amateur or professional, but sometimes it's kind of like the best way to get across what I'm trying to say. So it's not exactly the right word for it, but it just makes tracks maybe sound a little bit clunky. Like it's pumping to something that's doesn't exist in the track at the moment. Solid driving beat here. Claps a bit too loud, I think. Yeah, the mix is a bit muddy in this, and I think it's limited quite hard, I believe. Let's have a look at the waveform. See how clipped these transients are. Yeah, it's got quite a bit of limiting, and that's kind of making the track sound more well-rounded than it is in the mix, I think. So I think the mix is really letting this down, in my opinion. And the amount of limiting is kind of making up for that a little bit. I think there could have been something a bit more interesting happening in the break there. Yeah, and then you've got that again. You've got that pumping on the bass line when the kick's not there. I don't know if you're interested in getting the track mix, then hit me a DM on Instagram or something, and I'll go to my website, Weekend Audio, WKND Audio. I'm sure I could sort this out for you. It's got a nice vibe to it. Yeah, it's really muddy. There's a lot of stuff going on in the low mids that is kind of just, I think with a bit of volume balancing, it could definitely be improved and a bit more punchy. If you want to give it a go yourself, there's a few videos on my channel about like balancing kick and bass and like simple techniques for balancing the core elements of a mix. Mr. Downpour. Nice call and response here between those different stabs. I really like that vocal. It gives a good like energy boost at the drop there. Yeah, Downpour, this is a really solid one. Good stuff, dude. Get that in your demo queue to send out. Really like the drums on this, right up my alley. So personally, I think this bit here, like this we've dropped here, works better than when you're bringing in the synth here. I feel like that synth's not really adding value. It's not like bad, but maybe I would just reserve it for the breaks or something. It just doesn't kind of like uplift the groove. And I think you've got like this pretty full drum groove that's really working, and at least for me. So I don't think you need to overdo it by adding that synth. Nice little addition with those wee stabby bits. Right here, so the synth that you bring in here, I feel like you should maybe think about bringing it out here, because it kind of it's intense, but it's working, but it is quite tiring. And for me, like, that's just so good. And so this is good, but it's not as good as that to me. So I feel like taking it out there would me as a listener, or me as a DJ or whatever, would give me a return to my favorite bit of the track before the outro. So that's my thoughts. The outro you could look at maybe extending it out to like 6.5 minutes or something. But really solid track. I like it a lot. See where this is going, but some of these sounds are really, really, really loud. Too loud, man. These bits, fills, effects and stuff are just way louder than the groove. And then again, you've got, so when I say again, it's not like again for you. It's again for I'm saying it again from other tracks in the feedback session. But you've brought in this synth riff that's not really working with the bass line or what's already there. And then there's like this vocal in the background, like just it's a bit chaotic. There's some solid production techniques in here, like that. While I do have some critiques that I've given about the track, that build up sounded really cool. This kind of reminds me of like old Dirty Bird stuff, like Von Stroke and Christian Martin, like Who's Afraid of Detroit era Dirty Bird stuff. I mean, there's something here. I think it's just a matter of like refining it, deciding what's the main point, and kind of like just getting R.I.P. Dirty Bird. Agree. A shell of its former glory. I think, I don't know. It feels a bit confused, a bit chaotic, a bit like there's kind of too much stuff that's too loud, that's taking away from the groove and the main kind of, whatever the main point of the track is, you know. Right, Marcel, anything you need? This is really cool. It's kind of reminding me of, I don't know, 2012, 13, 14-ish kind of deep house stuff, like early kind of dusky kind of vibes. yeah, the mix could be slightly tighter, and I think given like I think it's very, I don't know if it's intentional, but it really sounds like it's from that time period, kind of, which is good and bad because it makes me quite like it, but it sounds a little bit outdated. That break was like pretty boring, not much happened, didn't really get me excited for the drop, which in that again in that time period that was would have been a pretty normal break. But I think there's so many more people producing and so much more, the bar's been raised, I think. But the kind of, again, the idea here is really, really solid. Yeah. Yeah, that's just, I feel like I can't imagine a setting where I would play that and that wouldn't be boring for the dance floor to listen to. Even at like a beach club where people are sitting on sun lounges and stuff, there's not really anything going on there, you know? So it's got, yeah, I think you've got a really solid idea there. I just think you need to like rework the arrangement and the way that you're transitioning the energy in the track, and tweak the mix a bit. Like some stuff is pretty loud in there, just a bit abrasive, so get it sounding a bit more smooth. Ion John. Funny enough, bro, you're at the end, so I'll try and give you a decent run through. I think this is solid, bro. I think I've definitely heard this before. It sounds like, if I remember correctly, you've kind of decluttered it a bit. The mix is still a bit not quite as balanced as it could be. Like, I think you played me one the other day that you'd had mixed and mastered by someone in Portland, I think you said, and that sounded like, I think if you had the same thing done to this, it'd work for what you're trying to go for. So get that done. actually, sorry, just going back to that Ion John, try and do it yourself as much as possible first, and then, get some help from the dude who helped you last time. This is another one. I don't feel like I've got like the points of reference that I'm trying to use to think about what this is trying to do are quite old. Like 2005-ish or something, or yeah, kind of old Tomcraft kind of stuff. It doesn't really have that hummability factor. It sounds pretty solid, but it doesn't have like a super memorable aspect to it. I like this synth in the break. I quite like the break. It's doing some cool stuff. There's some cool sounds. Am I going to remember it tomorrow? No. It just doesn't have this memorability factor, which I think is really important for music, because that's kind of the thing that communicates to people. I don't mean this to be offensive, but this sounds like it's got quite a few splice loops or something in it. Like these like vocal kind of what do you call that stuff? Almost like tropical house or something. These kind of like pitchy vocal chop things, and then some of the synth sounds, like there's not much movement in them. and they're kind of like the elements don't really. Some of them don't really sound like they're meant to be together in a way. Like this kind of drum groove and the main bass thing, not bad at all. But then you've got these kind of like melodic techno-y kind of synth lines in there. This kind of like, what do you call it? Tropical housey kind of vocal chop thing. These other synths that just kind of like aren't making sense for the... At least for me, the track it feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be. And it's, yeah, maybe you're early on in your production journey and you're just trying things out, and that's great. But if you, hopefully, you know, you can get some ideas about, like, try and have a more of a direction and try and select elements that are all working together in that direction. Okay, so here we've got a remix which we don't like on the channel for these feedback sessions because they normally get copyright claimed, but let's give it a go. So I'm a big fan of the original, and there's also like that, you know, this is obviously the remix parts from a remix competition. There were a lot of good remixes. There's a lot of remixes on SoundCloud. If you go and search Hotson 32 Buggin, you'll find like dozens of people's remixes from the remix competition, and it, you know, the how do I say it? The bar has been set very high for a remix of this track, and I don't think you're exceeding that bar. That said, what you've done is not at all bad. I don't think it's working really well for the vocal. Like the vocal sounds a bit muffled in the track. That said, I think if you take out the parts from Buggin, you'll have like a pretty cool deep melodic track there that you could maybe work with a vocalist to get something original and turn this into an original track with a cool vocal, I would suggest doing that rather than putting this up on SoundCloud like as a free download or something, because I think in doing that, you are playing in a very tough competition, and I don't think you're going to win that competition, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a good analogy. I've been doing this for 2.5 hours and my brain's a bit fried. Anyway, thanks everyone who sent the stuff in. Some really, really cool stuff in there. And we managed to get through a lot of tracks, and maybe I don't know, I tried to be not too rushed at the end and not too long at the start. But feel free to jump onto Patreon and comment your thoughts on that poll, and we'll see if we can try something different for next time, see what the community wants to do. Like I said, there's probably going to be 3 options, which is just status quo, which is kind of like what we did today. The option of having like maybe we do 20 tracks and they get a bit more detailed feedback, or that we have like 20 odd tracks and it's like a random selection rather than the first 20 tracks that I receive. So I think those will be the options, but if you've got any feedback from today's stream, then feel free to jump over there and drop a comment on the post that's there, and we'll figure out what we're going to do for next time. All right, everyone, enjoy their Sunday, and we'll see you soon. Peace.